I am playing poker on my laptop in Tijuana.
And who are you playing with?
I am presently playing a single table of 126 Max online. At 1-2, you're going to see pots probably that are normally in the 10 big blind range, so you're going to be looking at $20 pots on average. It's going to vary a lot.
So what gives you your edge over most of your competitors?
Well, it depends who you're talking about. There's a few different classes of people, but the simplest way to put it is that you have your recreational players and your professionals in just the simplest context. And your strategy against them is different. Against recreational players, they're just gonna not have played that long or not take the game seriously, and they're gonna make mistakes all over the place. And the most common mistake from them is that they aren't gonna be folding enough. So you just have to get a very strong hand, and they'll pay you off. That's a huge gross oversimplification. Against regulars or smarter opponents, you have to have a strategy that is more about having a range that's more efficient than them, and as time progresses, people's ranges overall become more efficient. But
What do you mean by range?
range? So with ranges, you have different categories of hands, and it's all somewhat arbitrary because the game is fairly underdeveloped. Although it's progressing all the time. But by range, you have the complete one end of the spectrum, the best possible hand, or what's known as the nuts. And so you'd be at the very top end of your range if you had the best possible hand. And at the very worst end, you'd have the nut low, which is the worst possible hand you could have. And then you have this whole category of hands in between. And most of the time you're somewhere in between. Sometimes you're towards the top, sometimes you're in like the second tier of hands, which could be your middling range. And then sometimes you're kind of near the bottom, that can be your bluffing range. And it's extremely variable dependent on opponents and people that you're playing against.
And as far as bluffing, everyone knows, the professionals I'm talking about, everyone knows everyone else, so they have to understand your tendencies or your bluffing strategies.
Yeah, there's poker programs out there, and it'd be impossible to keep track of every single person out there because there's thousands of people doing this. But there's poker programs that will record hands that you play and hands of people that you play against, and this gives you information as to what people are up to, and it can give you ideas of what kind of ranges these people have and what they're playing. It just gives you ideas. It won't give you precise information. Also, people are subject to change over time too, so yeah.
How are we doing today?
So far we are up $7.02, and we've been playing for about 5 minutes, but I'm not playing seriously right now, so. Specifically on tax day in 2011, April 15th, the US government outlawed online poker. And a lot of people didn't really know what that meant, myself included. I thought that just meant that a few months later things were going to be put back to normal, but that's not true. If you wanted to keep playing at that point, you had to exit to any other country virtually in the entire world at that point, other than the United States, if you wanted to play online poker. You could play live poker. Live poker in casinos is still perfectly legal, but for a lot of people that is just not interesting or fun or as profitable. It's very relaxing to be able to step out of my room and be in the comfort of my own house and not have to go play live poker all the time. We are now nearly 4 years past that. There are 2 states, at least right now, that have legalized online poker, but it's only interstate. Nevada and New Jersey, but you can only in Nevada play against people specifically in Nevada, or New Jersey only against people within New Jersey. And the thing about poker is you always want the widest audience possible, and only being able to play within Nevada State against people from Nevada State is not nearly as attractive as being able to play against people from the entire world. So that's by itself one thing. So you can technically play online poker in the United States. It's just not a great solution. There are also some blacklisted sites out there that accept American players, and that's another option. But those sites have huge problems. The most common problem is that these sites have very large cash liquidity issues, because any way that they're going to try and send you money is commonly borderline illegal, or at least gray market at best. And so you run the risk, or the huge risk, of playing poker and then not getting paid out from these kind of sketchy sites that are skirting U.S. law, which is not a good idea.
So tell me, why can't I do what you're doing, but live in San Diego and just come down to my office here and play?
You can do exactly that. Actually, there's a few people, there's a bunch of poker players, and one of my really good friends, his name is Glenn. He lives with probably my best friend here in Tijuana, his name is Marty, but Glenn only plays poker here in Tijuana and then visits his fiance, girlfriend right now. They're going to get married, I believe, sooner or later, but every single day he goes back and sees her more or less. And another guy, Gramps, he lives on the border too. There's another guy that lives in Tijuana. He has a girlfriend in San Diego. He spends the majority of his time living in San Diego. He comes down here, plays, and that's why a lot of people like Tijuana, because it's so close to the United States. So you can still do your profession but then cross. The biggest drawback with that is just going to be time. It's not easy. The San Diego-Tijuana border crossing is the busiest in the entire world, which is a kind of weird fact to think about, but that's just how it is. So you're going to be spending lots of time doing all that, which is a problem. Now, you were talking about why I can't cross the border. I can cross the border, but for tax reasons, if you are outside of the United States for 330 days out of the year, then there are good tax benefits associated with that. So I limit my entry into the United States because it's better for me to do that.
So basically, more than 30 days in the United States, you're going to be taxed as if you were in
well, more than 35 and 36 on leap years. But yeah, more than that, and then there's the first $105,000, give or take, that you make right now, you aren't taxed as heavily. You get like a 70% reduction on the first something thousand dollars that you make. So it ends up just being a cheaper deal.
But beyond that, once you make more than that?
Beyond that, you're taxed in full. And that's actually kind of interesting because the United States and this one random country in Africa named Eritrea are the only countries in the world that do that. Any other country, if you exit, you don't have to pay taxes. So the United States is very unique in that respect, yeah.
So beyond that, you're paying the same taxes you would if you were living in the United States?
And I have to do that. That's part of what happens here.